At hour 40, I read the human output trace, and it was flat at hour 9, when our war model had already predicted this garrison would fall at hour 5. Every soldier in the coalition has a clock that runs out. I am the one who logged the hours was supposed to end, and it did not end. So I have to understand the species that broke the math. What does a war model do with a line that refuses to drop? Let me back up. The coalition sent me to garrison Vheln to write the ending. That is the job, exactly as it was explained to me at the archives. A doctrine chronicler files the final hours of a position the war model has already written off so that future garrisons know what a collapse looks like from inside. It is honest work. It is miserable work. And I did not know, when I arrived, that I would spend 40 hours discovering I had the wrong ending written on the page. Vheln is a relay ridge, one fortified finger of rock between a Mazrin advance and 3 coalition worlds. Nothing strategic about it except position, which in a war is everything. The garrison held 200 and some defenders, Orani squads, Vheln mechanized, and 31 humans. I should be honest about the humans, because the archive will want it exact. The treaty clause assigned them. Humanity had joined the coalition late, bringing almost nothing the war needed. No plating, no membranes, no long range, no augment. The clause was the kind of obligation every species signs to be polite. A courtesy posting that puts a flag on the roster without spending anything on it. The garrison command looked at the file, saw the word auxiliary, and stacked the humans near the stores, between the supply bunker and the heat exchange unit. My first entry, page 1, in ink, the way the archives make you do it so nobody can quietly rewrite it later, arrived garrison room. Expected defensive collapse, hour 5.3 of the Mazrin assault cycle. Assigned to log the fall. I wrote that number in ink. I want on record that I wrote it believing it. Commander Elisa Darrow read the projection aloud at the war conference the first night, not to frighten anyone, but to make sure the new asset understood what it had signed on for. She was Vheln, grim, plated precise. 11 years a garrison commander, a soldier before that, and she ran the briefing the way she ran everything, by the numbers. The war model gives us 5.3 hours, she said. The sustained coefficients are known. Orani, 0.31. Rest 2 of every 3 hours, or the radiators saturate. Vheln, 0.38. The Mazrin know this better than we do. They will grind pressure and cycle their assault. And every defender on this ridge will reach their clock and stop. That is how this war is fought. That is how it is lost. She looked up from the projection. Any species with a clock loses to an enemy with a longer one. The model accounts for every soldier here. Log it. I logged it. Page 1. The Mazrin assault opened at dawn. And for the first hours the model was almost embarrassing in how exactly it was right. The garrison's own squads failed on schedule. An Orani squad, good soldiers, veterans, hit radiator saturation at the hour the coefficient said they would, and stepped off the line with the membrane flush I have seen in every siege I have documented. Gasping, finished, pulled back into the shade and the coolers. The Vheln held longer, their plating buying them room. And then they too fell back exactly where the projection had drawn the line. Everywhere on that ridge, the clock ran out exactly when the math said it would. Everywhere but one. The humans were positioned near the stores, which put them on the northern approach, which the model had rated low pressure. Low pressure for everyone. Their sector should have folded first. They were auxiliaries, 31 of them, small, unplated, and they had a habit I'd already filed as strange. They ate standing up in shifts so that no one ever sat down to a meal. At hour 4, the northern approach stopped being low pressure. The Mazrin noticed the sector was thin and pushed it. At hour 5, I walked the line to formally note for the archive that the sector had held. I assumed it had collapsed in good order and the remnants had fallen back to the second trench. That is what the model said. I wanted the officer's name for the record, the way a chronicler does. His name was Vheln. He was standing on the firing step with a clipboard, checking ammunition counts when I found him. Not crouching, not sheltering, standing the way you stand in a queue, in no particular hurry, while the sky over the northern approach did its level best to kill him. "Are you the chronicler?" he said. We were told you'd be along. We were told this sector was low pressure, I said. It was about an hour ago. He looked at the trace on his own wrist. It's medium now. Probably stay medium. Your squad has held a grinding assault for 5 hours. 31 of us, he said, as if correcting a trivial figure. We rotate. Nobody's on the line more than an hour. Ammo's fine. Water's fine. He looked at me properly for the first time. You okay? You look alarmed. I should explain the spine ridge because it appears everywhere in this log, and the archive will want to know it is not a wound. Orani carry a ridge of dorsal plating that erects when we are alarmed. It is reflexive. It is also, in a siege, deeply inconvenient because it is unmissable, and Kaelvorn Vheln noticed it before he noticed anything else about me. You look alarmed, he repeated calmly, while the ridge I could not control stood up the rest of the way. I am the chronicler assigned to document a collapse, I said. Your sector was predicted to fall at hour 5.3. He nodded. That's the number we heard. Hour 5.3 has passed. Did it? He checked his wrist. The minute takes care of itself. Usually, you measure a soldier in minutes. We measure a soldier in days. He shrugged. Anyone can take a minute. We're built for the day. I wrote that down in ink. It was the first time in this log that a soldier had answered a collapse projection with a shrug. That night, I did what the archives teach. I read the projection against a live trace. The model's expected collapse hour was a line drawn in the margin of the report. I had watched it pass, and the northern sector's output line had not so much as wavered. Sustained coefficient, northern sector. I read aloud to the empty storeroom because that is what I do when a number refuses to behave. I read it out loud so the archive can hear it later. 0.94. Error term exceeds the model's confidence envelope. I read it twice. The model does not do error. The model had done the same math every garrison commander in the coalition had done with the same coefficient and had produced the same answer, and the answer was wrong. And it was wrong specifically where 31 unplated auxiliaries were holding a sector that was supposed to be a courtesy. I sat with that for an hour, the way I was trained, and the only explanation I could construct was that I was misreading the trace. The trace was not misreading. If you have ever kept going long after everyone with a chart told you would stop, tell me where you were watching from. I would genuinely like to file it. It would help. By morning, Commander DRO had the report on her desk, and I should be fair to her here, because her disbelief was not stupidity. She had run this garrison by the numbers for 11 years, and the numbers had never once failed to keep her soldiers alive as long as they could be kept alive. A flat output trace at hour 9 contradicted 11 years of her professional life. She sent for the humans officer and for a military examiner. The examiner was Reclassification, an Orani physician with a specialty that mattered more than she knew. She read the biology underneath the equipment. She was the kind of examiner who asks why a body does what it does, and the garrison had never needed her before because the coefficients had always answered. She ran the human biometric telemetry in the storeroom while Kaelvorn Vheln stood there, letting it happen in no particular hurry. Run that again, Relis said to the machine. The machine ran it again. Read the output, she said to me, because she knew the archives had taught me to read traces exactly. The cooling line. I read it. It is elevated. That cannot be. I stopped because the number did not behave. Read out loud, Relis said. Their core temperature is stable, I said. They have been moving firepower for 9 hours. Their muscles are producing heat. I would file as a casualty warning for an Orani. And their core is stable. Their bodies are dumping heat. I looked at the data again to be certain. They're dumping heat. I would have called a casualty warning, and they're still firing on the mark. Where, Relis said quietly, is the heat going? The trace had the answer, and neither of us liked it, because neither of us had ever seen it. A human surface. Their skin was wet, not injured wet, not membrane saturated the way an Orani's radiators flood. Wet from inside at the surface where the heat could leave the body and go somewhere else. They sweat, Relis said, and the word sat in the room like a foreign object. They carry their own cooling with them. Their bodies open a channel to the air whenever they work. The heat does not saturate in them. It leaves. They shed heat. I said. Shed. Rella said the word like she was testing whether it was a real thing or a rumor. There is no species in the coalition that sheds heat at work. Every one of us builds it until we are forced to stop. That is what a coefficient is. That is why the war is fought the way it is fought. She looked up from the trace. Their bodies do not force them to stop. Their bodies are built to keep going. It was the first time in my career that a physician had read a biology and found not a limit but a running schedule. I should say what I did with the rest of that day, because it is the part of the log a chronicler files out of pure curiosity, and the archives have asked me to keep it. I opened the Coalition database on the human species file. Earth. Small. Unplated. No membranes. No augment. Gravity that makes my own feel like a holiday. And a section on how the species used to hunt before they built machines to do it for them. They did not hunt the way we hunt. Stalk. Sprint. Take. They hunted the way nobody hunts. They walked. A human would take up the track of an animal that could outrun them in a single bound, and then simply not stop. The animal would sprint and rest. The human would walk. The animal would sprint and rest again. The human would still be walking. After enough cycles, hours, the animal, the one that could run 10 times faster than the human, had no sprints left, and the human walked up to it. Persistence. The file called it persistence hunting, and I read that word for a long time. The database was patient with me after that, the way it is with a chronicler who has finally asked the right question. Pilots who fly a single mission for 12 hours in a pressure suit no bigger than the seat, fed through a tube, because a species that refuses to stop operating had to hand its own cooling to a machine. Bomber crews, 44 hours. Firefighters who carry packs up a mountainside while the rest of their species runs away from the same heat. Runners who cross a distance that would take an Orani a full day in a convoy, on their own feet, and then make tea. None of it was a miracle. All of it was the same file. A species that dumps heat, and therefore a species without a clock, and therefore a species that does not fight the way the war is fought. I closed the file and went back to the ridge. If the war is a war of clocks, I wrote in my log that night, then a species without a clock is not a soldier in this war. It is the ground the war stands on. If you'd like the archives to keep bringing you the files nobody else reads, the log of the day the galaxy's math broke, subscribe, and I will keep filing them. At hour 30, the Mazrin did something the model had not accounted for, because the model had not accounted for the northern sector at all. They asked who the unit was. It came through on a capture transmission, the kind of intercept that happens when an enemy assumes their comms are encrypted and they're not wrong enough. A Mazrin field commander, Marshal Vorun, and this is the part one want the archive to keep verbatim, because it is the moment the enemy's entire reason for fighting that ridge died. Command. Which coalition unit is the sustained unit? Repeat. Which unit is maintaining the northern approach? The war log shows no defender holding a full cycle. I need its designation and its expected collapse. A pause. They're on the approach at hour 30. There is no model for this. My model ends at 5.3. Command, what am I fighting? There was no answer in the intercept. The answer was on the ridge. I played the transmission in the garrison war room, and Commander Darrow listened to it once, then asked me to play it again, the way a commander asks you to repeat the number you have already confirmed to her twice, because she needs the third time to be real. Days, she said finally. She was not talking to me. She was talking to the flat line on the trace. Days. That is what he said. Days. It took me a moment to realize she meant Cornvale. The man who had answered a collapse projection with a shrug had told her, at some point in the 30 hours, she had spent quietly reordering her entire defense around him, that the coalition measures soldiers in minutes. Commander, Rella Sorn said, reading from the intercepted file, their war log ends where ours did, at the minute. Nobody in this galaxy built a line for the day. She looked up, and her voice was flat in the way a professional's voice goes flat when the thing she has spent her life explaining has just been proven at the scale of a war. The Mazrin assault broke off at hour 31. That is what the archive will say, and it is true as far as it goes. They did not withdraw. They regrouped. They had spent the entire war assuming that any defender pushed hard enough and long enough would eventually hit the wall every defender in the galaxy hits, and they had found the one wall that was not there. They did not yet believe it. They needed to test it. That is how the war gave them Hour 38. I will describe the final wave honestly, because the archive does not forgive exaggeration, and neither does the Ridge. The Mazrin committed everything they had left on the approach in a single sustained push built on one bet, that the humans, 31 of them carrying wounded, low on ammunition, 38 hours into a fight no species on that ridge had been designed to survive, were running on nothing. They were not running on nothing. They were running on the thing that had let them walk down animals that could outrun them. The northern span was the one position left worth holding, and it is the image I will take from this war. A human machine gunner, Rigo Dorn, the archive will want his name, standing at his weapon with a bandage wrapped around his forearm, firing in the same disciplined rhythm he had fired at Hour 1, while medic Fi Okada moved between the wounded and the open, because there was no one left to hold the sector down and no time to build a safer way. And their sergeant, Vheln, moving down the line, checking ammunition counts with the same clipboard he had carried at Hour 5, in the same unhurried way, as if a single day's work had simply become a long one. There was no great speech. There was no breaking point. There was a species that had evolved to keep going, holding a span of rock, while the enemy's entire doctrine ran headfirst into the one species it had no clock for. At Hour 38, the Mazrin broke off. Not defeated, I want the record precise about this too. Their assault died the way a siege dies. Not from a counterattack, but from the death of the assumption underneath it. They had pushed a defender to a point no defender had ever reached, and the defender had not stopped. There was no reason to keep pushing. The math that had made the war winnable was false for this one ridge. And if it was false here, the Mazrin had to assume it was false everywhere there was a human. The archive will tell you the garrison held. I am telling you the truth. The garrison was a courtesy posting that stopped a war model by refusing to run out. The relief arrived at Hour 40, and that is the number that goes into the log because it is the number that matters, not the hour the model predicted, not the hour the enemy believed, but the hour the humans were still on their feet when it was over. I found Vheln after the relief, sitting on the ridge wall with a cup of coffee, watching the supply shuttles come down. Not decorated, not celebrating, not even particularly tired in the way I'd been taught to recognize fatigue. Just sitting, a man at the end of a long shift. You look for the species that broke the math, he said, when he saw me. You want the answer. It's not a secret. I would like to understand, I said. He turned the cup in his hands. Your species measures a fight in minutes. Everyone in this coalition does. That's a fair way to measure a fight. He drank. We don't. We measure a soldier in days. Not because we're braver. Because we spent 1,000,000 years running animals to death in the heat. That's what we are. We're the species that doesn't stop. The Mazrin, I said, did not lose to a better army. The Mazrin didn't lose to a better army, Korn agreed. They lost to a species that ran its prey to death in the heat. You just happened to be the prey that day. He said it without triumph. The way you state a fact about the weather, and I wrote it down in ink, because the archives will want to know exactly how the day the galaxy's math broke was explained to the chronicler who witnessed it. Anyone can take a minute. We're built for the day. The coalition reclassified the human sustained rating that month and opened a doctrine review across every garrison on the line. The request forms started arriving almost immediately. Garrison commanders, all of them, asking for the same thing. Human sustained personnel. The same kind of ridge had, they wrote, as if they were asking for a piece of equipment. They were, in a way, they were asking for the species with no clock. I filed my log, as I am required to do. Page 1 still has the number I wrote in ink, believing it. Expected defensive collapse, Hour 5.3. I am going to leave it in, the way the archives taught me, so that whoever reads this in 100 years understands what 40 hours looks like when you measure the galaxy in minutes. The model was not stupid. The model was built by a galaxy that had never once seen a species that could simply keep going. If you have ever been told how long you would last, and then lasted longer, that is the file I would like to read. And if you want to be here for the next log, for the next time the galaxy learns it has been measuring the wrong thing, the subscribe button is right there. I will file them for you. That is my job.